Hi all, I have another very interesting game from David Grosvenor. This is against Ethereal 10.88, Leela ID 11019, so a very high ID. So the set book position starts actually with the Scotch game, which is pretty topical since Garry Kasparov came out of retirement and played at the St. Louis Chess Club using the Scotch game to get very, very good positions against super grandmasters. So E takes, let's see, so Kasparov's really reignited the Scotch game. Now here is the end of the book, knight f6. So this is an interesting trendy move. White takes on c6. This is pretty standard actually, but there's also knight c3 as well as another alternative. For example, this continuation has been seen a lot. It's thought to be about even. But this is quite an exciting variation, knight takes, because white commits to e5. Now black doesn't usually play knight d5 here. This leads to potentially a small advantage for white like this, for example, where this bishop's pretty nice, this knight's a little bit restricted. So plans with black usually pin that pawn to cause some disruption of natural development here. So queen e2, knight d5, and you might think, well, black's disrupted as well, having to fianchetto, but there's a target here. White hasn't got an immediate target if white's going to fianchetto. c4, knight b6, b3. Now this does cause a slight downside, this diagonal, this loose rook. So what can Leela do with that? Well, the natural thing to do is just to fianchetto with an extra target, basically, not just e5, but a1. We have here also trendy in chess players like is a5, just trying to undermine this pawn chain quite quickly like this, for example. And this is pretty annoying, this continuation for white. It should be about even. So anyway, g6, g3, bishop g7, and now we have f4, protecting the pawn, bishop b7, bishop g2, and now Leela castles. So it's quite an exciting dynamic situation. You'll note that the queen here is stopping any c5, which could be a nuisance to black at the wrong time, to try and hem in this bishop. But at the moment c5 is controlled. We see knight d2, but it's here after d6. This is very, very interesting now. So trying to logically break open this diagonal, expose the rook. But white plays c5 here, which seems an energetic positional pawn sacrifice. So if this was taken, Leela actually didn't do this, then white seems to have a very nice position, like so, knight c4. So white's got a big advantage here, great compensation. That's very nice, because look at the treble pawns, the blocked in bishop. Yeah, white's got a lot of prospects there, and the c5 could be a target as well later. So d takes was actually played, sacrificing a knight. So remarkable knight sacrifice to try and really expose not just the king of the centre, but this rook on a1. So white takes that here, and we have now the point revealed, because this pawn is pinned, just simply unpinning here. So unveiling the big threat of taking on f4. And this is really dangerous for white. I'll give you a few examples. This position, well, what did white do? B takes c7. Let's say b takes a7. E takes f4 is the full wrath of black. Threatening queen takes and bishop takes. So if queen takes here, check, and then just taking the rook. Big advantage. Say white castled instead here, then there's check here, say queen f2, black can take that, and then e4 actually hits the rook and threatens e3, so that's very, very bad for white as well. Black has a big advantage there. So very, very interesting continuations. Say f takes e5, then simply bishop takes e5 here, hitting the rook, and if rook b1, then it's a total disaster. Bishop takes g3 check, and something like this is possible. Queen takes mating. So this seems relatively safe. B takes c7. Black takes that, and now closing with f5, this e file. So has Leela got anything here? E4 hits the rook. Rook B1. And now E3 is played, which after knight C4 it disrupts the king position. Check. So at least there's some compensation. But now a key point is revealed. Queen D7. And it looks as though this pawn, it wouldn't just be check, it would be winning the rook on B1 now. The rook's still a loose piece liability. White defends with G4 here. We have G takes. And white takes the time to play H3 here. If we look at this position, say this daring move, then it is supported by the knight. Then actually F4, this position is that pin is too much. And also, if bishop b2, more sensible, then actually black can play f takes g4 here, leaving the bishop hanging because of this check again. So for example here, check, and then taking with check. And this is actually pretty crushing. So that's to be avoided, that situation for white. Black's got a big advantage there. So h3, the cautious h3, trying to keep control of the f5 square, so that's important here. And now c5. So challenging the bishop on g2. So Leela is playing here a piece down, but with huge compensation. Bishop b2. Again, if g takes here, this is too dangerous. Check, and then just taking there. And if king g1 here, then in this position there's the startling rook d1 check. Absolutely crushing. So if taking here, then there's queen f2 check and queen takes g2 mate. So that's absolutely crushing. If bishop f1, then rook g8 check, and then just it's crashing through. So very, very dangerous situation here. So bishop b2, bishop takes b2, rook takes f4, rook c2 is played here. And now there's rook e6, which gives the idea that f3 is interesting with rook f6. So that's one way to get to the king with this rook left. Rook c1 is played here. On king g1, it still seems f3 is dangerous. For example, taking takes check. This e pawn is actually saving the day for black. After e2 here, black, despite being a piece down, because of the e pawn, it's absolutely great for black here. Black's winning that position. So a lot of fun and games here. So after rook e6, rook c1 is played. And then we do have f3 in the main line anyway. Rook f6. Now knight e5, which is a bit of a token defense, because after queen d4, yeah, this is very bad news. The knight is the only thing holding white together. So that's actually given up to unpin here for a moment. But the resulting position now is in black's favour. If we look at this position, black is a pawn up. This check is not actually played. We have queen h2. I'm not sure that's any harm for black at all, really. There might be things like rook b6 in any case. So we have queen h2. Rook f4, stopping the exchange of queens, not being interested there. Now here actually, now that the rook's off, being lured away, queen b5 might be a pain. And we have actually the surprising king b6, which not only parries queen b5, the king might be great, ready and prepared for endgames, more out and about for possible endgames. a4 renews queen b5, that's parried. a5 check, this seems a bit strange, actually, a little bit desperate. Black just takes that. There's no rook a1 here. So rook e1, rook e4. This endgame is just great for black. This resulting rook and pawn ending, especially with the king so aggressive. There's no real chance for white in this rook and pawn ending. The game carries on until this point. Yeah, white's getting a bit mopped up. So here, adjudicated as a win for black. This is very easy to win this rook and pawn ending now. So, yeah, an interesting game, Scotch game there with black, sacrificing a piece to expose basically liabilities in white's position, like the rook on a1. And even on b1, it was still a liability to be targeted. So very, very interesting dynamic game, I thought, with the black pieces in the Scotch game, which is pretty topical at the moment. Okay, hope you got something from it. Comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks so much.